Hey, in this video I'm going to show you how to install the CNC triggers for your SSR4 Mk2. So let's get right in it. Now that because we're going to operate the trigger, make sure the gun is safe, the battery is removed, there's no BB inside. I had previously checked this one so that it's safe and we don't have any unpleasant surprises. Now, the most tricky part of this process is obviously to push out those retention pins and reinstall them. For this, it is very, very important to support the trigger. Obviously, this is a part that you will need to punch out those pins, so if you don't support it from the other side, you run the risk of breaking your trigger in half. This should not happen unless you are very, very rough with it, but it's always, like I said, quite important to support the trigger on the other side, whether you punch the pins out or you punch the pins in on the new trigger face. Make sure to find something that you can jam underneath the trigger, right? But if you cannot find anything that would fit in there, there are two options on the gun itself that you can use in a pinch. It's not necessarily recommended, but you can use it in a pinch if you don't have anything else. The first one would be to use a spacer component inside the motor. So inside the motor grip, sorry. For this, it's very simple. You just open the cap and you will see this spacer component inside, which you can just like simply slide off. Re-put the cap there so that the motor doesn't like come flying off. And using this component, we can actually put it underneath the trigger, which will create a nice like support on the other side for us. And also it should not rotate. Actually, if you would put it in this position, we also make sure it's not going to come out like on any other side. The second option we can use in order to support the trigger would be the flash hider itself. But because this is metallic and has paint on it, it can chip a little bit, like if you put it underneath. But if you simply remove the flash hider, it fits perfectly inside the trigger well, which will also support the trigger. But honestly, I would recommend using this plastic part because you cannot damage this. It's super simple to reinstall it, and that will not affect anything on the gun. So go ahead and use this part in a pinch if you cannot find anything else. All right, now we're ready to start punching the pins out. For this process, you can simply use the two-headed hex tool, which is included in the package, but make sure to use the smaller of the two. One is the 1.3 side hex from the two. Always these two pins should be punched out from the left side of the gun towards the right side of the gun. There is a knurling on the pins, so if you go the other way, it will be much, much harder, and you also run the risk of damaging the trigger itself. Okay, so we add it to that little hole over there, and using a small hammer or something, we lightly tap it. It went off. It should go very, very, very easily, like out. Good. Now that both of them are out, let's see. Yeah, one fell out together and one is still here, which we can just grab with our fingers and pull out. From here, we can simply remove the trigger face. These two pins are magnetized, are metal, so you can actually store them on top of the motor so that you don't lose them. Now take your preferred trigger face and slide it into place. Good. When we reinstall the pins, we go in reverse order. So we punch the pins from the right side towards the left side. So I'm going to rotate the gun, put the jam underneath it, a little piece to actually to support it in place, and locate our pins. And you will see on the pin itself, it has a little knurling. If I can show it. Like this side has a little knurling, so that side should go in last. So we put the smooth side first. And make sure that it's going in like it's there, like everything is aligned properly. Like you can actually look into the hole and see if everything is aligned. And if it is, we can start punching the pin in. For this, you should use some other bit which is bigger than the pin itself, so that you have a bit more purchase on it and you can properly drive it in. And with light taps. Okay, so now I'm almost all the way in, but not all the way in. As you can see, the knurling is still outside. Like it's not actually engaging on the trigger face, which that knurling part is what actually holds the pin in. So that requires a little bit more force. So before doing that, however, I'm gonna install the second pin as well. I'm gonna drive it in up to that point so that it's well supported. You can actually hear the difference in the way it sounds like once it hits it. And now we need to use a little bit more force. For this one, I would use a hex bit, which is even bigger, so that I have more surface area, so that I don't run the risk of damaging the surface of the trigger itself. And we put the little support on the other side right underneath the pins. So while I'm applying force to it, I'm driving it directly into that part without running the risk of damaging the trigger. There we go. So a few harder taps, and now you can actually see that it's flush with the trigger face, which is what you want. You don't want it to go like more than that, you just want it to be flush with the trigger. From here, we go ahead, in this case, and reinstall this, the part that we robbed from the motor, by simply installing it with this little rib right here in the middle of the cables. Make sure it goes smoothly all the way down, and then clip the cap into place. And there we have it. It's ready. You have successfully installed a CNC trigger face to your SSR4 Mark II. Have fun out there.